Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're ready.
All right, good morning, everyone. Antoine Thompson, Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. Excited to be with you all today. We are celebrating Drive Electric Month, which officially kicks off tomorrow. And today we're going to highlight some of the efforts for a project that we all have been working on. Many of us have been working on for about 4 years or so now, the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Project, a partnership. Before I do that, I want to make some quick announcements. Tomorrow, we will have a Drive Electric DMV Prince George's chapter happy hour, 6 to 8 p.m. At 4400 Forbes Boulevard, Forbes Drive in Prince George's County, Maryland. So that's tomorrow, Prince George's County, Maryland. That will take place at 4400 Forbes Boulevard as well. Secondly, we will have an event on the Tuesday, September 23rd at Clyde's Willow Creek Farm in Broadlands on Broadlands Boulevard in Virginia. That's a networking event kicking off our Loudoun County effort as well. For all of you who are hiring, on September 30th, we will host a job fair as well on September 30th at Westphalia Community Center in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Also, you can save the date on October 23rd. We will host our annual Clean Energy and Clean Transportation Conference, including awards luncheon, a ride and drive and vehicle showcase exhibitors, and we'll have lots of panels as well. So we're looking forward to that October 23rd. You can go to our website at gwrccc.org for more information on that as well. Because we have so many speakers today, I want to make sure we give them time, especially since this is National Drive Electric Month. I'm going to start with our first presenter, my colleague and someone who works really hard, has been in this industry a long time, young at heart, Alan Harnett, Executive Director of Virginia Clean Cities Coalition. So welcome, Alan. Looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Antoine, thank you. And Kimberly and everybody who is here today, very grateful to be here. I do have some slides in the form of um, a PDF. Kimberly, if you're able to pop that up. And there's a lot of text on here, which I am not going to go through all of it. I'm actually going to rip through kind of with a quick 10-minute deck. And I could try to, oh, there we go. So just wanted to celebrate our Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership. So here in Virginia, DC, Maryland, and West Virginia, we at the end of last year, we completed most of the project. And then this year, leading through September 30th, we've completed the full Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership efforts, education and outreach, which you're going to be able to hear from today, analysis and mapping. And I will just say how much I am grateful for the folks that I do see in the attendees from our national lab partnerships, communications, charging infrastructure, and vehicle deployment. There was so much activities that we took part in. And Kimberly, thank you very much for the slides. If we could go to the next slide, next page. And so I'll just start off by echoing what this was. It was an electric vehicle ecosystem partnership across the Mid-Atlantic, and everything changed. Virginia Energy rebranded, the West Virginia Energy Office rebranded. There was full staff turnover in many of those offices. If many of you guys might remember Al Christopher at the start of this project, well, we were grateful to have Vince Maiden and Ed Cronin at the tail of this project. But so much changed. there was some great change along the way where this project, which built this ecosystem, one of our partners, Blink, ended up purchasing SemiConnect, a local firm here, and moving their headquarters to Maryland. Um, but there were so many activities and rebrands. Also, the project did reach some challenges. We reached the end of a 4-year period, and we did lose the ability to contract and partner with one of our main stool legs of this, which was Argonne National Labs. And then everything changed. So 2020, this was a Trump era project. We went through a whole Biden administration, but we had the Volkswagen settlement for the diesel emissions during the early parts of the period. We were pre-NEVI. We helped launch the National Electric Vehicle Initiative with this program. Then there was a brief period of no NEVI, and then now we are back to the National Electric Vehicle Initiative work that's going on. So folks might feel a little bit of whiplash in this journey, but the strength of this ecosystem has allowed us to move forward. We've had tax credits boost, we've had EPA programs boost, we've also had those programs change. And throughout it all, different communities needed different things at different times. So there was a great opportunity to learn. Next slide. Just to mention some of the larger projects and programs that influenced the electric vehicle ecosystems were the Volkswagen diesel settlements, the 2021 infrastructure bill, tax credits, but also throughout those periods, utility programs. And you're going to get to hear from a speaker on one of those key programs today, a major program for this. But we were working with all utilities throughout the whole Mid-Atlantic, Virginia, DC, Maryland, West Virginia region, and some great work in this partnership with some chargers that we also deployed more so regionally. Next slide. You're going to hear a ton from our outreach partner today about the leadership approach that was taken for frontline education, but this is just a cute note of the types of vehicles and technologies that we were displaying at those events. So this is a teaser to pay close attention to Dr. Shelley Francis. Next slide. And I'm not going to cover too much of this, but we did so many phenomenal digital tools in this project. The main one, and I will tip my hat and share deep appreciation for Argonne National Lab, was launching our GEM tool, which also allowed the federal government to be prepared for a lot of other tools. So this geographic energy mapping tool allowed folks to plan for EV chargers in all communities, a quick and simple tool that the project helped make free and instant access for all users. And that information journey was so wonderful to be a part of. Next slide. And the utilities also took a strong approach, something that was not possible at the start of this project. Throughout the project, we were able to disclose grid capacity for EV charging across the partnerships, across the region. And this is now spread nationwide with many utilities sharing their capacity for EV charging. Next slide. As we seek to grow electric vehicle chargers over time, we had a chance in this project to start to plan in Virginia, also aligned with some of our statutory outcomes, how many chargers we would need over time. Next slide. And so our process that we were able to involve in this process was to listen when this project is to listen to communities about what chargers and what goals they had, to record notes, to track their time frame, to communicate them about their specific needs. And everything for me from the start to the end of the project fell back to the how many people does it take to put in a light bulb joke, because it was not easy, and no EV charger is the same. And so I've got a few slides, next slide, about the successful EV charger and community hub deployments that we did. There's Martinsville, Virginia, which is Southside Virginia. There's the Hampton Inn in the Shenandoah Valley on that slide. Next slide. Here is a set of chargers that we put into White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, and ended up getting demand charges because we had so many electric vehicles using the chargers that we had demand charges on level 2 chargers, which was fun for the ecosystem. Next slide. And rural community charger partnerships. Here's the tourism and site host and myself cutting a ribbon to celebrate some EV chargers. Next slide. And along the way, we were able to fill out tourism-based EV chargers and rural chargers and replace chargers using non-federal cost share for equipment, which is really a tremendous asset to get equipment out the door. So we had some good work going on. Next slide. So our project installed these community hubs with GreenSpot, these fast level 2 chargers with Blink, and celebrated the deployment in Virginia with our Volkswagen settlement of EVgo chargers. And so I wanted to flag this and then also do a little zoom in on the Northern Virginia, DC area with so many EVgo chargers. Also thank the Virginia Clean City staff for pulling pulling these slides together. So the tease is that next slide, you're going to hear from BGE about their tremendous work on rideshare vehicles, but look at how these happy folks, including Gabe Klein with the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation, snipping a ribbon in front of 2 beautiful fast chargers with the graphics designed by community partners. Such a beautiful thing to see this work land into reality and to see so many smiling faces. Next slide. And ultimately over the project, this is maps, and we still have some chargers underway, is our hopes, but we have 284 more charging ports at 160 sites. Including these rural chargers. Next slide, which really fills out the infrastructure in the region. This is a note from a tool called the Alternative Fuel Data Center Station Locator. Next slide. And this is sort of like my version of a animation in PowerPoint, so in PDF. So this is also the map on PlugShare, which is a community tool and a great app. And then the third one is something we also experimented with, which was dealer displays for a team called ChargeWay. So these are all the chargers mapped on an app called ChargeWay, and these are the ones that would be the just compatible with the Chevy Volt, for example. Next slide. I'm just going to keep ripping through, and just to celebrate that we did also do electric school buses and vehicles. So here is my transition into the great vehicle part of the ecosystem in this project. EV school buses require charging, and what we also wanted to be sure they were able to do was to get from the dealer to the school district. And a lot of that was on their own power rather than on a big old giant diesel flatbed. And so here is the installation of those chargers as we transition to the next slide about vehicles. And as we celebrate 100 Lyft vehicles with BGE, which we'll hear from, Turo and Travelers were able to successfully engage. We did a great bookmobile project, and then we have some trucks and sedans for state vehicle integration. Next slide. And major success was the hundreds of school buses that were able to be moved forward throughout the project. And so we had hoped for 50 school buses when we proposed the project in 2020, and we've achieved in Virginia, and we've achieved almost 500. Maryland is ahead of the game as well with the planned 738 school buses. So these are just 2 maps of where those school buses are deploying in Virginia, and also a map of the nation showing the great progress in Maryland. Next slide. Other vehicles were our reasonably priced electric bookmobile on display here. Next slide. And you'll hear more from BGE as a later speaker about their tremendous rideshare vehicles. Next slide. These are completely electric vehicles that were loved. Next slide. And so this is my final slide, just to celebrate the team that was also behind a lot of this good charger work. We do have Antoine Thompson and Vince Maiden with the Energy Office here, as well as some of the EV Noir team with Alex and Shelly in the photograph, and the student who designed the graphic behind us, as well as team members from the Maryland Energy Office. And I'm grateful to be in this world with you, Antoine, and pass it back to you.
Yes, thank you. Great job. Lots of great information. If we could just put up my slides. And I'll go really quick so we can get to the other folks. Yeah, some of you hear me talk all the time. All right. Just really quickly, under celebrating the success of MAP, we can go to the next slide. So just some of the, you passed the first one. You gotta go back. Is that the first slide? Okay. All right, just some of the things that we have been involved with, in addition to deploying lots of chargers, both in the city and suburbs, both DC, Maryland, and Virginia. One of our big priority areas has been doing a lot of community education, which is desperately needed, given the fact that less than 10% of the people have an electric vehicle in our region. We do a EV 101 workshop. You can see people love those things. Actually, at many of the workshops, both virtual and in person, people have actually come to those and gone right out to buy an electric vehicle after that. We started, as a result of this program, a Future Green Leaders effort. And so we are in 5 schools across the region. And so these are some of the high school students in Maryland that we that are part of our Future Green Leaders program. We go teach them about environmental stewardship, green careers, and financial literacy as well. I'm going to the next slide. So we also been involved in taking electric school buses and other vehicles around the region. We've also been involved with a lot of conversations, both from the DC Auto Show, which brings over 30,000 people to that event, to having discussions on the importance of electrification, both in the region and at different meetings across the country as well. Next slide. These are just some of the exciting things that we've been able to do. So one of them was this one was in one of our suburban areas, Frederick County, Maryland. Great partner of ours. That was with Blink Charging, putting some charging stations in downtown as well. We've been able to get some at different government buildings, rather hotels and apartment buildings. And we're trying to squeeze a few more in as well, because we have about 40 different folks that want chargers yesterday. In fact, I just got another email from a mayor of New Carrollton that needs 3 chargers. So if any of you have any chargers you want to send them to me, right? Whether you're in the program or not. All right. The other thing is we have a number of great events. This year during Earth Day, we had a number of electric vehicles on the mall. I want to thank some of our partners from Pepco to City of Alexandria, Dash. So many partners brought electric vehicles on the National Mall for our first Earth Day walk and run. So we're excited about that. I'm going to go to the next slide. I think that should be it. So that's it. You can, as we transition to the end of MAEP, we will continue to do the work. We do have a Drive Electric DC initiative. So a lot of this work will, some of this work will morph into those efforts as we accelerate the transition to electric vehicles in our area. So thank you. And I will turn it over to Dr. Francis, and then she'll be followed by Devesh Gupta. Did we lose somebody? Kim, you got Dr. Francis?
I'm here. I was just trying to get permission to unmute and show my video. So good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you. I actually miss our monthly meetings for the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Project. So guess, let's see. Am I bringing up the slides, or is Kimberly bringing up the slides?
Kim will bring them up, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I just want, while she's doing that, just want to take a moment to acknowledge our partners, Virginia Clean Cities, as well as the Virginia Department of Mines, Mineral, and Energy, for their leadership on this project. And it was a pleasure working with all the numerous partners that we worked with. I also want to acknowledge my team members who were leading this effort. So Alex Bod, who was our Mid-Atlantic Regional Manager, and then Danielle Hoover Cherry, who also was the program manager who facilitated the day-to-day operations of this work.
One moment, please.
Okay. So just to give you a highlight, so that when I jump into the slides, we can just get right into it. We were charged with, EVNOR was charged with facilitating the outreach and the education work for this project. And so we broke it into 6 programmatic areas, which we'll see momentarily. All right. So let's go to the first slide. That's the last slide, almost the last slide. Thank you. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So I was speaking momentarily ago about the scope of work for our team was to facilitate outreach and education. And what we did was we broke it into 6 programmatic areas. And so we actually started with facilitating a landscape analysis to understand attitudes, knowledge, beliefs, and barriers, as well as opportunities to accelerate both multimodal electrification. So we wanted to really understand what we were seeing across the 4 territories that we were working in, so that would inform what our strategy looked like for community engagement, workplace charging, STEAM and STEM engagement, etc. So move on the next slide. So we were tasked with facilitating 8 to 10 engagement activities each year. We got a 4th bonus year due to COVID, and so you can see we well exceeded our metrics and our goals. And so the idea was, the first couple of years was COVID, so we were limited to doing more virtual events. And then obviously later on in the project, we were able to facilitate more in-person engagement. Next slide. These are just some highlights from some of the activities. So we started doing EV Day at the Capitol in the state of Virginia. So the photo on the left is from that engagement, as well as meeting with legislators. Then you can also see here that Mayor Stoney, LeVar Stoney, who used to be the mayor of Richmond, we had facilitated some work with his office to really highlight fleet electrification that was happening in the city and what the city was doing around electrification. Next slide. Again, more highlights from in-person engagement, where we're focusing on both multimodal electrification, so showing things from e-bikes to personal passenger vehicles to transit buses and school buses. Oh, as well as electric boats. Next slide. So I touched on, we did a lot of critical data and analysis to inform what our engagement strategy looked like. So I'm going to really speed through some of the key highlights of this work. But we looked at, we engaged respondents from across those 4 regions, Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, and DC. And we wanted to understand what was happening and what was their reaction, attitudes, et cetera, around electrification. So these are just some of the key findings that we found across the region. And it was really important to us that we got a cross-section of the population. So we wanted to get people from rural communities, from urban communities, as well as the suburbs. Next slide. So we broke the findings up into, based on the 4 areas. And so these are just some key highlights from each state. And so you can kind of see some of the demographic characteristics, as well as access to transit. You got the racial breakdown, as well as income data. Next slide. Again, similar findings. So, you see here in Virginia, like there were a lot of Asian participants in the Virginia respondents. And so just key findings, there were a lot of Asian participants were most likely to come from Virginia. There was a rural urban divide. So we saw folks coming from the rural community, as we say, that we wanted to capture feedback from rural communities, because sometimes they're not included in part of these conversations. So we felt it was really important to, get feedback from that community, so that when we started working to engage in that community, we were basing our engagement based on findings from the data. Next slide. Again, here in DC, DC obviously is a very urban community. We had a lot of 20% of folks had a higher income, access to mass transit. That's no surprise here in terms of access to transit and public transportation. Next slide. Okay, West Virginia, that was really interesting findings here. I think this is one of the probably first studies that looked at electrification in West Virginia. And so these are just some of the kind of key demographic characteristics that we found, and give you a moment to process it. And so going on to the next slide. So just kind of giving you some key findings. So key takeaways. Charging infrastructure is a barrier to adoption. That's no surprise. During this process, we had the federal investment that rolled out, trying to address some of those charging barriers. And so you can see here, there's quite a significant number of folks, particularly in West Virginia, which no surprise, report lack of access to charging infrastructure. And we can see, Maryland, Virginia, and DC results as well. Some key variables. This one question was trying to understand if they knew anybody that was an EV driver, because knowing somebody who is an EV driver helps normalize adoption and normalize understanding of the benefits of EVs. And so you can see here, there's a lot of work to be done around education and engagement. Next slide. So we also facilitated focus groups and key informant interviews. So just a couple of quick highlights from those findings. So you can see some quotes from folks that were part of this process. Again, showing education, addressing charging infrastructure, addressing issues around transportation and mobility is a concern of many of the folks that we gathered from the key informant interviews. And I think engaging people and meeting them where they are is really important. One of the things that I take away from the last quote at the bottom is that, getting people at activities that they're already doing and exposing them to EVs is just a nice synergy and a great way to meet people where they are. Next slide. Our focus group findings, you can continue to the next. Just some kind of key findings across the different areas. So you can see we try to break it into challenges, differences between urban versus rural, safety concerns, how COVID was impacting mobility and transportation. And so these are just some of the key findings. Some of it has to do with infrastructure, which we hear a lot. Usually some of the barriers that we hear well documented from our research as well as others' research is charging infrastructure, so the lack of access to charging infrastructure, not enough awareness about different types of EVs, and then cost of EVs. But as you can see here, people also talked about other factors around mobility, so whether it's pedestrian safety, biking, road conditions, traffic concerns. These were some of the broader issues that people were facing around mobility. Next slide. And so some of the key takeaways that we learned from this project led us to do other work. So in terms of addressing education barriers, doing EV 101, normalizing multimodal electrification, we actually created another campaign, another initiative as a rollout from this project called Electrifying Virginia. And so that's a convening of probably about 30 stakeholder groups across the state of Virginia, whether urban, rural, policy, utilities, transit, cities, legislators, public health folks, university partners, as well as community-based organizations and EV enthusiasts. And it's the opportunity to really utilize collective impact to move multimodal electrification best practices forward. And so this is a group that meets monthly. Alex runs this group. And so that is kind of like the first step that we're trying to take to really utilize data and research to practice and take some of those findings and utilize those findings to try to mitigate some of those barriers to adoptions that our different partners and stakeholders identified in the project. So in conclusion, this was an amazing opportunity to work with so many of you that are on this call today. And so we really look forward to what the next steps look like in terms of continuing this engagement, even though things have the working environment and funding has changed, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And we just have to be creative in how we partner and how we continue to move forward. So thank you. And I will turn things back to our host.
Thank you, Dr. Francis. And I just want to say on behalf of our office and organization that we definitely have developed a great partnership with your organization as well. And we do a number of events together throughout the year. And it's been a pleasure of working with you not only on this project, but on many other things we've been able to do, not only in the region, but across the country as well. Next,
Thank
I
you.
like, thank you. Next, I'd like to go to one of our utility partners who has done an amazing job as well. Devesh, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning. You can see me okay because I don't have perfect. Okay. Really happy to be here. Great to see so many faces that I'll say over the last 5 years have now become friendly faces. And we've been through a lot of trials and tribulations and a lot of wins too. And I'm really happy to be able to report out today to talk about a big win over the course of time that had a lot of small wins along the way, and share with you. And I'm happy to share with you some info about our Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership grant, for which our portion at Baltimore Gas and Electric was a rideshare program that we proposed. And I'll just start out by talking about why we came up with the idea. And essentially in January of 2019, our Public Service Commission in Maryland authorized us to build a public charging network in Central Maryland across BG's territory. We're the largest utility in the state with about 1.3 million customers, serving not just Baltimore, but all of Central Maryland, all the way out to Annapolis. And the challenge there was that we were told to build that charging network in places where the private markets weren't going. So in community areas and infill areas, in limited income communities, places that weren't likely to see investment from private dollars for a very, very long time, if ever. And of course, why the charging networks weren't going to go there is because utilization was going to be low. And so you were going to get a lower return on those investments. But the commission, I think very wisely, wanted to see us address this challenge of transportation equity ahead of time and build that infrastructure. And we were excited to do so and started putting in stations. But very early on, there were a couple of things that we wanted to think about. And that was, how do we drive more utilization, not just put this infrastructure in these communities, but actually create opportunities for use of these stations in those communities too, so that the communities can benefit. How do we try to turn that on its head to where there is utilization on these stations, where others may have seen that no, there wasn't likely to be. Number one. And then two, how do we involve more of the customer base that we serve, and all of them, in this transportation electrification transition as well? And where we went with that was, well, why don't we look at rideshare for that purpose? We know that rideshare drivers drive a whole lot more than the average personal use vehicle. And we came to find out that rideshare often was being used for point-to-point transportation in ways that a majority of rides were either starting or ending in underserved or overburdened communities within our territory. So we thought, okay, let's see if we can tackle this. And this opportunity came up through partnering with the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership for getting grant dollars that was a perfect fit. And so what we proposed was using grant funding to enable 100 electric vehicles to be introduced onto Lyft's FlexDrive platform in the greater Baltimore area. And this is the platform through which Lyft actually rents out vehicles on a weekly basis to drivers that either don't have their own vehicle or maybe don't want to use their own vehicle for rideshare. And it gives them a reduced charge for that weekly rental, depending on the number of rides that they give during that week. So it's a great way for people to take advantage of if they need a vehicle, say for a particular week where they know, let's say that they have some hospital visits or doctor's visits, or they know that they have certain places where they're going to need to take their kids that it's going to be more difficult to get to. They can get a reduced cost and earn some income that week by driving for Lyft. And so the grant funding was used to enable those vehicles, to reduce the kind of the overall cost of putting those vehicles in market. And we use some of the funding from the grant to upgrade the speed of a number of chargers that we were going to deploy in our public charging network. So our budgets that were approved in January of 2019 were actually proposed in January of 2018. And they were based then on what was the latest technology, which was 50 kW fast chargers. As you can imagine, the technology improved very quickly thereafter, but our budgets weren't large enough to take advantage of higher powered fast chargers. And those higher powered fast chargers were particularly important to rideshare companies. As we talked to several different rideshare companies, they needed that infrastructure to be faster so that their drivers could get back on the road faster to take the next fare. So we were able to use that funding to upgrade 20 of the DCFCs in our portfolio of DCFCs to be higher powered 150 kW fast chargers. And I'll say the results were significant, and we were really pleased to see the results. Next slide. Oh, sorry, this was just the summary, and I gave you some of this already. We can go to the next slide from here. So just a quick look at the timeline. Grant was launched in 2020. We put the first 25 vehicles into the market in 2021, and we energized 10 of the 150 kW stations so that those vehicles were ready to go. And mind you, we provided a fleet discount to those vehicles to charge anywhere on our network as well, to make it easy for them to find charging when they needed it, regardless of what the speed was going to be. 2022 for us was kind of like a gut check year. Where are we? It did take a little longer than we would have liked to get all 100 vehicles in market, but the remaining vehicles for that Lyft fleet got into market in 2023. And by 2024, we had energized all 20 stations. And this number that you see at the bottom here is actually not accurate. That number, that was early in the year 24 number. At the end of the grant, there were over almost 6 million clean miles driven by these vehicles, and we'll get to some of those highlights too. Next slide. Just to give you a sense of where the chargers were that we upgraded to be those 150 kW chargers. There were a number of underserved and overburdened communities in the way that our state defines those environmental justice communities within Baltimore, where we placed chargers. And in addition, we thought it important to have that infrastructure at the airport, where certainly they were going to get a lot of utilization. It's where a lot of rideshare rides are picked up, even if they are taking riders into Baltimore City. So we focused there as well to provide the right infrastructure for rideshare drivers there. And then we also had some that were in Annapolis too, one DCFC out at the Annapolis Visitor Center. So a broad swath of our territory. One that I'll point out that really evidences what we were trying to do in terms of creating opportunities within communities at St. Francis Academy. So St. Francis Academy, a historically Black high school in Baltimore City. They just recently actually became a middle school as well, so more than a high school. But they were really excited to partner with us and with the Maryland Department of Correctional Facilities, because on the back end of St. Francis, it overlooks what was the old Baltimore jail, and it's now being converted and in the process of being converted into not a correctional facility, but a rehab facility. And the Maryland Department of Corrections partnered with us and with St. Francis for St. Francis to provide the property to the Department of Corrections, because we have to site our chargers on property that's either owned or controlled by state or local governmental entities. And we placed the chargers there, and then we took it a step further too. We ran a competition with the Baltimore Design School, which is a public magnet in Baltimore City, for their students to design the wraps for those chargers, to get them involved and interested in the space. And you'll see on another slide how those turned out, and they're beautiful. But those chargers are being utilized, and more as the months go on, and as EV adoption increases even further, they're getting utilization, including from this EV fleet that we helped to put into the market. Next slide. And here's some of that impact, which I'm just so proud of for the team that was involved here, because it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears here. But we had 2,300 over 2,300 unique drivers on the on the Lyft platform that were driving these EVs. These EVs did drive an increase in charging sessions. In fact, they resulted in 50,000 plus charging sessions on the DCFCs in the 20 grant supported DCFCs. So that's from both the rideshare fleet as well as public drivers access to those facilities. But a really impactful stat here is this more than 5.8 million miles driven. So those are emissions-free miles driven with this fleet. And think about that then in terms of the impact that has on local air quality, especially in these underserved and overburdened communities where more than half of these rides are driving through those communities. Next slide. So just a couple of photos and things that show you some of our celebration, those wins along the way where we celebrated the wins. You can see the drawings and both the sketches and then the design of the actual chargers that were designed by the Baltimore Design School student, as well as some of our ribbon cuttings where state and local officials came out, federal officials came out, and certainly our own execs did as well. Next slide. So an important part of this whole effort too that we saw was the marketing opportunity. We know that every ride in an EV, a ride and drive, is the most effective way to change hearts and minds, to get people to think about driving an EV. So whether that's the driver of these vehicles or someone that was riding in them that just happened to get one of these EVs as their Lyft ride when they called it on the app. So we included in these vehicles some information about the EV that they were in, about our own BGE programs that could support EV drivers, and just general education about electric vehicles as well. So we really took advantage of that opportunity, because think about how many rides in a year this EV fleet could provide. That is a tremendous amount of touch points, marketing touch points, and ride and drives. Next slide. Little bit just about, again, onboarding. Whenever you bring new technology to users, you've got to teach them about that technology too. And so partnering with Lyft and FlexDrive and teaching drivers about how to charge, what it means to drive an EV, when you need to charge, and the like. We thought that was important too, and this is some samples of the teaching materials that were out there for drivers. The next slide. Again, with the help of all the MAE partners, EV Noir, Greater Washington Clean Cities Coalition, the Virginia Clean Cities Coalition, and many others, we were able to use this opportunity, use these wins in the grant to also educate the community beyond just rides in the vehicles. And that included sessions at schools, at universities, including some of our HBCUs, and through the media and local news outlets. And so we really took advantage to educate through this, and I'm proud again of the work that the team did. And that really wraps it up. I'll say today is a day, I think, of celebration for wrapping up this grant. if there's opportunity, I'm happy to take questions, or you can reach out separately if you do have some questions about this. But again, it took a lot of hard work, but the juice was worth the squeeze at the end of the day, as you can see from the results.
Thank you, Devesh. Great presentation. Lots of amazing success stories. As you all can imagine, these are PowerPoints, so it doesn't tell the total story of all the great work that's happened. One of our folks who is on the call today, helping to manage this call, Jade Bynum, we met her at one of our partners, Bowie State. She heard that we were part of the Argonne internship program. And so she walked up and we interviewed a number of others and we selected her. And she's since finished school and is now a member of our team doing grant writing and outreach for the office. So
That's amazing.
So it's a good story of so many great stories of entrepreneurs that we've been able to work with over the last couple years or so, from this project to relationships with people doing research, to both public and private entities working on a whole host of issues to make it easier for us to deploy charging. And so I'm so excited. I want to
Antoine,
give.
can I add just one bit,
Sure.
because you talk about that impact beyond the slides, and Alan shared a bit that really hit home for me, and our team hadn't realized it, and I loved sharing it with my team, was that what we did here, this was done before IIJA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, before NEVI. But what we were able to do ended up looking really like the blueprint for NEVI charging stations, for NEVI sites, which now are starting to pick up a little bit of steam too. But we had at BWI Airport 4 150 kW high-powered fast chargers that were supported by federal funding in order to serve the community, and that's not lost on my team now, and really thanks to everybody that was a part of this to make it happen.
Thank you. I want to give Alan a chance, and also Dr. Francis a chance to just give us just a quick word about what do you see next? When your crystal ball, what do you see next? We have well over 90% of our region still. Folks don't have electric passenger vehicles. You've got a lot more work to do to educate ordinary people about the importance of it. And so, Dr. Francis, I'll give you the first crack. What do you see happen? What's the next? What do you see happen after September 30th in your crystal ball?
Oh man. So what do I see happening in my crystal ball? So that's a great question. I wish I had all the answers to that. I think we have moved beyond some of the early adopter crew. I think it becomes more important for these partnerships that we have, Mid-Atlantic Electrification, we've kind of morphed into other partnerships. So Electrifying Virginia, there's other things that all of us collectively are part of. And so I think the private-public partnerships become even more important now because we don't have that federal the backing. So working with utilities, working with philanthropic partners, working with cities and states becomes more critical because we have the data that shows that there's interest, there's willingness to move to adoption, but there's obvious barriers that may slow down that transition. So, doing what we can within the bounds of what we have access to and being creative in what those partnerships looks like, I think is the way forward in the short term. But also I think the train has left the station for many of the manufacturers. So a lot of them are far into this, even though some of them are now transitioning to do more gas vehicles and more hybrids. I think globally, in order for the manufacturers to be competitive and stay in business, They have to keep producing EVs because they just don't just make money in the United States. They have to make money in China, India, and these other markets so that adoption is much higher and advanced than the United States. So I think you have all of those things in play right now.
I love it. I love it. Alan, you want to jump in? Did we lose Alan? He may have to jump to another call. Devesh, I'll give you the, oh, is he still there?
He left early.
Okay, yeah, that's right. All right. Devesh, you're a big utility. What would be one of the last things that you see, next things you would like to see happen to accelerate the industry in your service territory?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dr. Shelley Francis is definitely spot on in terms of being mindful of what are the next steps. I do think I would love for us as an industry to really focus on some of the CARB states that are going to be likely to get a lot of the output, even as you're seeing some automakers, continue the path in terms of production and driving down the cost and introducing more affordable EVs that everybody can drive. And you're seeing some that are reducing the number that they're producing, even if they're coming out with new models. But where are those EVs going to go? Very likely they're going to go to CARB states, right? As long as those regs still are around. And then there are a handful of other states that are really high adopters, like Texas and Florida, Georgia, that aren't CARB states. So looking at those places, including Maryland, and not trying to be self-serving, and thinking about how do we continue the progress? How do we continue to prepare the grid here and the industry here in ways that really greases the skids for the entire country, right? That there are still learnings along the way. And whenever people think there's a market retreat, that doesn't have to be the case. That can be a time for more planning, more preparation for having a much steeper hockey stick once costs come down, once production goes up, whenever or however that might look. So that's what I'd like to see. I think there is real excitement around some of the smart charge management opportunity, as well as the vehicle to grid, and to me, unlocking vehicle to home is going to be really important with how do we really take advantage of the opportunity with electric vehicles. And I'll say, when we look at communities like, you had the map of West Virginia up and the adoption challenges, we got to help communities like that understand what the opportunity is too, right? That same person that might have to drive 15 miles to get to a gas station, if they had an EV, they'd have their gas station right at home, right? And as the battery capacity goes up to be 400, 500 miles per vehicle, that becomes an advantage to driving an EV versus driving a gas vehicle, and actually drives convenience for those drivers. So, continue to think about those things is what I'd like to see.
All right, well, we're almost out of time. I want to thank everyone for being here. Our partners from, I see some of our folks, Nicole Kirby, shout out from U.S. Department of Energy. Thank you for being here, Nicole. Also, I want to thank Alan Harnan. I did see Cronin here from Virginia Department of Energy. Thank you for being here, Ed, as well. And also Graham and the rest of the VCC team. I want to thank our team from Greater Washington Region, Clean Cities. I see Tracy, also Kim and Ajay, who've been working on this for, especially Kim and I have been working on this for a couple of years as well. So I want to thank you all of our partners, both near and far, for your guidance, your wisdom, your direction, your patience, your mentorship, your partnership to advance this program. And we want to thank the U.S. Department of Energy for their support of this effort. I also want to remind you all that tomorrow we will have our Drive Electric happy hour, which will be at 4400 Forest Boulevard in Prince George's County in Lanham, Maryland. And then lastly, next Thursday, if you're interested in staying involved, we do have a Drive Electric advisory board, and you can join that board to send me an email and we'll get you involved with that. Tracy Thompson manages that particular project. Without further ado, thank you all. You have been wonderful. Again, happy Drive Electric Month, and let's always remember, let's go green. God bless you.